Hello, welcome to the inaugural edition of Grindhouse Gutter here on the All American Spook Show YouTube channel. This will be a new series that we kind of let, well, I guess any of us, but more specifically, Professor Smoak kind of pick something at random that you would consider a grindhouse flick. So we're talking, B movies, exploitation movies, grindhouse fare, obviously, action movies, kung fu movies. Um,
Yep.
what else? What else am I forgetting? Of course, horror as well.
Yeah. And yeah, there's just the oddball type things that would play at either. I mean, even though we're calling it Grindhouse Gutter, drive-in movies. For places that didn't have grindhouses, they had drive-ins. Like in the South, where we're from, like there's a lot of southern places that their grindhouses were the drive-ins. So any types of fare that you would have seen at the drive-in or at grindhouses in any big city in the 70s and 80s. It's pretty much what we'll cover here, and that's a lot of genres, even some sci-fi, crazy sci-fi stuff too from that time period. So it could be any genre, with the exploitation factor being high.
And at the end, we'll let Smoke give his his ratings, and we'll have different sets of ratings for each type of movie. So if it's kung fu, we'll have shurikens. If it's an exploitation movie, he'll give away X's. If it's an action movie, we're gonna grade it with choppas. And then if it's a horror movie like the one that he's going to talk about today, he'll give away cleavers. So what movie are we going to start with this week for the first edition?
Well, I think since we were gonna open up this inaugural episode, might as well do it big. I mean, go real big. This shirt I got on is somewhat of a giveaway, so it's revealed granddaddy of them all, right? Cannibal Holocaust. So, what other movie would you open this with? Yeah. I mean, there's quite a handful, but if you were to go, I figured, we might as well open it with one of, if not the biggest and most controversial grindhouse film ever released, really.
Oh, good Lord. It's unbelievable. It's horrible.
So to give a brief synopsis of what the movie's about for those who haven't seen it, it's a documentary crew going in the jungles of South America to shoot footage of this tribe. Something happens to this crew. They lose communication with the school, with their the people that are producing, putting up the money and all that stuff for the documentary, right? So they don't know what's happened to the crew. So
4 youngsters who never came back.
What they do is get together another crew that they're going to send in there to find out what happened to them, or recover the footage, or whatever they can find out. They have to go and get a guide to basically take them into the jungle, because it's deep part of the jungle in South America.
The lieutenant here was telling me what an excellent guide you are.
They come across a tribe. You don't know which tribe this is yet, but it's a tribe that has some information about the prior film crew. But they locate the canisters of film from this other crew, and they develop it and take that raw footage, and they're going to just have some people watch it from the school. This other professor that was part of the crew that went in to get them out, as well as some higher ups at the college. They'll pull them into this room to watch it, and you're seeing it unfold. You're seeing what happens to that original crew unfold as they are seeing. So what that basically means is that this makes this one of the, if not the first, found footage movie. A lot of people like to credit Blair Witch with that, and the Blair Witch did do up the ante when it came to the found footage movie, and pretty much a slew of copycat movies came out after Blair Witch. All the way up to this day, we still get found footage type movies, or at least something that uses that trope in some way or other. But I believe Cannibal Holocaust was, to my knowledge, if somebody out there can prove me wrong, and then you might be able to, but I think it's the first one. And that footage, to make it look more authentic, that first camera crew footage is shot on 16 millimeter film. So they go in, they shoot it that way. So then after that, any other footage in the movie that's not part of that original film crew is shot on 35 millimeter. That's a very cool concept, I thought, of taking you in and out of this documentary.
I wonder who the real cannibals are.
So we haven't done this movie on the show, and who knows if and when we'll get to that point. It depends. I mean, we might just I don't know that Donny and Will might not be up for certain things that go on in this movie, because I don't know if Will knows about it as far as everything that, the Italian cannibal genres are about and what they have in them. I know Donny does. He's heard about them and read about them, I think, in the notoriety of them. And most of that notoriety is in the terrible animal cruelty acts that are real in these movies. They're very real in these movies. And there's no real excusing that. Even the director of this film Ruggero Deodato, regrets that aspect of the movie more than anything else, of course. Cannibal Holocaust is not the first cannibal film, not even the first of the Italian cannibal movies. It is the most notorious. The first one, that honor, if you want to call it an honor, I guess, goes to Umberto Lenzi's Deep River Savages. That was the first one that kind of kicked off this whole thing. And then after that, that's when it really took off. But this movie's not even Ruggero Deodato's first cannibal movie. That is actually a movie called, well, in Italian, it's Ultimo Mondo Cannibale. The English title was, there's a slew of different titles. One was Jungle Holocaust. Another one was just called Cannibal. So it had a few titles. The Last Survivor, Last Cannibal World, a whole bunch of different English titles from different regions. But this was Deodato's second cannibal film. Came out in February 7th, 1980 is when it was released in Italy, in Milan first. And 10 days after that, Deodato was promptly arrested on obscenity charges. Shortly after that, they tacked on murder charges. And that's because nobody could find these supposed actors that were in that first, the found footage. What happened was Deodato made these primary actors that were in the found footage part of the documentary crew sign contracts that they would not appear in any other films or anywhere in public for at least for a year, to give it more of a real feel to it. And I don't know if they had to come to court necessarily, but he had to basically prove that they were not dead. They are, in fact, alive. And that at least got him off of most of the murder charges. Now, one other thing, though, that got him in trouble with that was and I'll show it here. This is a reproduction of the poster for Cannibal Holocaust. But this is airbrush poster artwork. But this scene in the movie, which features the impaled native woman, he had to basically show them. I had heard differing accounts. I'd heard that they actually had to kind of recreate this in the courtroom. And then I also heard that he just described what he did. It looked very real. And anybody who's seen the movie, especially since that footage is shot on 16 millimeter, it definitely does look pretty damn realistic. But I think he did end up getting charged with some of the animal cruelty scenes in the movie. But he was acquitted, of course, of any murder charges.
So I guess where do you want to land here now? You know, we're going to do the Grindhouse Gutter rating here, and I think what we'll do here is it'll be a scale of like say 0 to 10, and it'll take into the account all of the things that make it such a great Grindhouse movie: the gore, if a different genre of movie, the action, the martial arts, the exploitation, all these things. You take all these 5 or 6 factors and you kind of ball them all up, and you'll come up with the professor's Grindhouse Gutter rating. So with that in mind, where are you going to land for Cannibal Holocaust?
For this particular movie, taking everything into account, talking about the gore, talking about the exploitation factor, number one, and I'm trying to think of who said this. There's a quote that basically says, the worst thing you can do in an exploitation movie is to bore your audience, to make a boring film. That's like that. So anything that's just doesn't have any good exploitation elements, that just bores you to death, would be a 0, of course. And anything that adds all this stuff to the stew, not to use a cannibal reference there, but anything that brings all these exploitation elements into the pot is going to be, brings all of them together, would be a 10. So that's going to be the scale here. And now we use gore score when it comes to our regular shows. We're not going to use that necessarily for here. The gore score is going to be a factor in the gutter rating.
I want this material burned. All of it.
Without further ado, Cannibal Holocaust is the first Grindhouse movie we're doing here, and it is the first one to get a 10 on that gutter rating. So, and that's because it brings in everything but the kitchen sink, and it actually takes in the kitchen sink, throws it in there too. You pretty much got any element in this movie. Now, that being said, it is controversial as hell for all the stuff we had already discussed on here, as far as mainly though for the animal violence. But there's a ton of human violence. I mean, not real, of course, but special effects. But there's very disturbing gore when it comes to that. As I mentioned about the impalement, that seems pretty grueling. There's decapitations, there's castrations, there's all kinds of things. There's limbs being hacked off, hands, whatever. And now I guess we'll get to the cleaver rating. And the cleaver rating is going to, just to give a little bit of a background on this, is going to be a 1 to 5, just like our star ratings are or our cannonball ratings or whatever. But like the Canon score, this one is going to be elevated maybe a little bit more so than our regular stuff, because exploitation films are a sort of a different breed. But for the Grindhouse stuff, cleaver ratings, this movie is going to get 5 cleavers. It's going to be a 5 cleavers, 10 on the gutter rating, It is the ultimate grindhouse movie, and it is one of the most grueling experiences when it comes to grindhouse cinema.
I can't understand the reason for such cruelty.
But I think for the first episode, the inaugural episode of Grindhouse Gutter, like as we said in the beginning, you can't really get much bigger. The granddaddy of grindhouse movies and Cannibal Holocaust.
And I think we'll also add that Smoak or any of us reserve the right to change our rating or look at it in a different light whenever we do this for the regular podcast, because it's kind of a different scale, because over there you'd be comparing this movie to other movies that we've watched, so it's got a little bit of a different grade scale there than you would give on Grindhouse Gutter, right? So
yeah, I'm definitely giving a sliding scale when it comes to the grindhouse movies, and those based on just based on how entertaining it is in some way, shape, or form, or how the exploitation elements go together to make it a great grindhouse movie.
So the professor recommends the movie if you have a stomach for it, so to speak. Just know that there are a lot of factors that go into this one that you should be aware of. That we've talked about at length in this video. So, yeah, I guess that's it for the inaugural edition of Grindhouse Gutter. We thank you for watching. Come back for the next one. We don't know how frequent these things will be. But I guess we'll see. We'll see how successful it is and how it progresses over time. But yeah, so there you go. So for Will, who couldn't be with us, and Donnie and the Professor Smoak, of course, I'm Josh, and we are from the All American Spook Show podcast, and we encourage you to go seek out the podcast. It's right here on the YouTube channel. It's also wherever you get your podcast. We encourage you to give us a listen, give us a good 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and all that, and come back for the next Grindhouse Gutter.